I think there's still too much of a stereotype that sees charity as something kind of fluffy and on the side, that doesn't require real leadership and, you know, real drive and hard work and intellectual rigour, all the same sorts of things that are required in business. And it would be absolutely amazing to get that recognised on a broader stage, and I think that would send a really great message both within Save the Children but importantly across the sector, and encourage more people to think about a career that can move between the private, public and voluntary sectors, which actually I think is something that a lot of young people now are kind of looking for. Obviously Nelson Mandela, fantastic leader, you know, iconic for my generation in particular, but perhaps you'll forgive me for highlighting actually the woman who founded Save the Children, an amazing woman called Eglantine Jebb, before her time. She was an internationalist, she was a campaigner, she got herself arrested on Trafalgar Square for handing out photographs of children caught up in the First World War, demanding action. She then, you know, so she did the campaigning, but she then went around the world and convinced all the world leaders, from, you know, the Pope to on down really, and included celebrities, got Einstein and Thomas Hardy and other people to back that campaign, made it international. She then came up with the whole concept of the rights of the child. That every child should have a right to go to school and to have enough to eat. And the fact that she was doing these things, you know, 100 years ago, I think is pretty phenomenal. Personally, I was really affected by a couple of years that I did in my 20s at VSO in Uganda. So I was a volunteer and I worked with the disability movement in Uganda doing management training. And, you know, one woman who I got to know very well over those 2 and a bit years was a woman called Marianne, a young mum. She was very severely disabled. She was probably about my age, you know, mid-20s, and she had a 1-year-old daughter, and she lived in a very small kind of shack really at the back of a factory. And she loved and cared for that daughter and wanted all the same things for her little 1-year-old in terms of, you know, staying healthy and having enough to eat, and, you know, she wanted her to be able to get an education, have a future and having a chance in life really. And yet her setting was so just mind-bogglingly dire really. And she came under the umbrella of a very local disability organisation that in turn the organisation I was volunteering for was involved in. And I just feel so driven by all of our people on the front line, like her, who really deserve so much more. You know, life's unfair, but we don't have to accept that. We can do something about it. So that's what drives me in my job at Save the Children. Actually, it's kind of the other way round, in that when I think about, we all probably have these stories, all those leaders that I've come across who just didn't step up to the plate. You know, boring meetings you've sat in that are going nowhere, decisions that weren't being made, issues that were being skirted around, decisions that, you know, were put off until the time had come and gone. And, you know, I just think if you are fortunate enough to be in a position of leadership, you just owe it to the people that who are looking to you and are relying on you to, you know, be the best leader that you can. So that's what I try to do. It's surprising how many people think that I'm part of the Whitbread family, which I am not, and, you know, came from a very modest background. In fact, I was the first person in my family to go to university. So that's sort of dispelling something that people seem to think about me.